Oh my God. Dewey.
What are you doing here?
Oh, I love it. How you doing, brother?
I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I am great. He's Dewey Freeman. I'm Mark Sylvester. We are the Elder Council. And this week, you had a fun thing happen which inspired me to talk about old friends, new friends, and best friends.
Yes.
So tell us what happened.
Well, earlier this week, I received an email from one of my old colleagues at Naropa University. It was interesting because that email ended up getting forwarded to me through the chain of people and nobody in that particular group that was putting this out had my new email, which my
Hmm.
new email is not that new. I this will make everyone laugh. My old email was drfreeman@aol.com.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
And my new email is deweyfreeman@gmail. But what this turned out to be was a potluck reunion of all of the faculty at Naropa University that I was a part of. I taught at Naropa University for 30 years.
And for our audience member who doesn't know what Naropa is, give us a one sentence or
In
two.
Naropa University, it's a private school. It's a Buddhist-based contemplative study center is how it began. Naropa University then merged with Boulder Graduate School in 1991. And actually, for a while, was one of the premier universities teaching people how to become therapists. And
Mhm.
I was in the master's level uh, program teaching. Um, and for a while, my perspective was it was one of the best programs for people to go through if they were wanted to learn to become a therapist. And this reunion was, and it's changed dramatically over the last 5 to 7, 8 years. Um, but this reunion was all of the teachers that uh, all the professors that was sort of in the cohort of professors that I was a part of. And I mean, and just to give you a sort of time frame, as one of the women, Barbara Carter, um, she was the chair of the department that I was in. Her and her husband became pregnant with a child, and I met her daughter last night, who's a 22-year-old young woman,
Wow.
just very bright, very vibrant young woman. And so it was it was nostalgic. It was healing. It was I mean, I saw people that I haven't seen for years, and what was so wonderful about it was the cohort of there were like 8 or 10 of us, and then there were it sort of concentric circles out of that.
Mm.
Um, Unbelievably creative people, and it was a super interesting um, evening. It was incredibly healing. It was incredibly joyful. Um, and it was this whole group of people that are in their late 60s and early 70s that are still doing unbelievably fun, creative things. And um, I've had a bit of heartbreak around Europa in the last few years because of um, the changes that
Mm.
I'm not so sure are that great. Um, so this was very healing to connect with that group and to be in a group of such incredibly warm, kind, competent people. Um, and that was one of the pieces. And at the toward the end of the evening, there were a group of us standing around, and it was like we everyone knew each other well. Everyone knew each other on a personal level as well as professional level, and it was a kind of group where you could go to anybody and talk about um, what was going on professionally for you, what was happening with students, and if need be, what was happening with you personally.
Mm.
Because when I was so entrenched in that system, and when I say entrenched, I say that in a good way. I'm not talking about, cult or anything like that. Um, it really was a family, and that's the uh, that as Naropa has changed over the years, that's a bit of the heartbreak that because it was like a family, um, and we were like joking about that and laughing about it. And one of the best pieces about it, and this is one of the other former faculty was speaking, and she was saying how clean it was. And what I mean by that is that the relationships were very clean. We could joke, we could laugh, we could support, but there wasn't any, you know, like faculty wasn't dating other faculty, and faculty wasn't messing with students, um, and we were supporting each other in our relationships, both in the program and outside the program. And
What one would hope that a group of people who trained the people, who work with people to help them resolve broken relationships and broken lives and all of the and to deal with the rigors of life. You think of a counselor, you think of a psychologist, you think of a therapist, you think of these people who help us navigate life, that the people who train those people ought to be about the best adjusted people on the planet.
one would hope. And interestingly enough, there's um, in this particular case, that is what happened. And even one of the pieces it's so interesting, especially in that kind of a setting, is that there are incredible challenges in teaching because students come in from all over the world, and some of those students are pretty well adjusted and very bright and are there only to learn. Other students come in and they really do want to learn. I mean, they come in with a passion to learn, but because of some of their backgrounds, um, there we would have to work with trauma or work with loss just to help people be able to learn. And so, um, and the particular kind of teaching we did was incredibly experiential teaching, uh, which now the whole field of psychology has moved toward much more toward behaviorism and things like that. But um, that's not what this was. It was experiential and very, very in-depth somatic work, very in-depth relational work and experiential work, and the that we were teaching. So it brought up all kinds of stuff for people.
One of the things that crossed my mind as I was listening to you, because I have teachers in an extremely high regard. We've talked about that. I hold teachers
Hmm.
way
Hmm.
up there, very super important in our life. And we've talked about the student teacher coin that I keep in my pocket. And sometimes I'm the student, sometimes I'm the teacher. And
Absolutely.
I think of the impact that teachers have on students and how many people you can get into a conversation and they remember a kindergarten teacher, they remember a specific moment in time in the first grade, the fourth grade, the sixth grade, in college. We remember those people in our lives. And I think about the impact that a teacher has. So now think about the teachers who teach teachers and the literally millions of lives that have been impacted by the work you did.
Yeah, and that's a really, really big deal.
Yeah, it is.
And the and mm, that part of my life, all of my life's been incredibly rewarding, and that part has been particularly so. Um, but and you're right, when I think about it, over 30 years, I'm going to guess I did not keep track. So I'm just probably I had 100 students a year. So 3,000 students. If I really counted, it might be more. But if each of those 3,000 students go out and, into the world and they impact even 100 people, that's a
No, it's
huge number of people.
yeah, it is.
And
And and here's what's interesting. One of the things that's interesting is I I'm gonna guess that the ripple effect didn't cross your mind while you were doing it.
that is 100% accurate.
Yeah. And it's
And
in on reflection that we go, oh yeah, that happened.
yeah, and there's two pieces. You're so right on that, Mark. And there's two pieces of this that were really um, one from last night, but one from when I was teaching is, and I was sharing this with Kimberly this morning, is the group of people that I was with last night, which was a group of people I spent enormous amount of time with. The level of competency in that group,
Mm, mm,
every
mm,
person in
mm.
that group is just as competent as me, just as creative as me, some of them more, um, just as well educated.
It was like a Jedi convention.
Yeah. And it was like my entire body relaxed into that last night. And so that was one piece. The other piece, and this goes to your point about not, I didn't really think about the ripple effect or the concentric circle effect. But when I teach therapists, and I would just came to me partway through my teaching career, probably, I don't know exactly when, maybe 10 years in, is I would tell students that I cared about them and what they were learning and what they were going through. But what I cared about more was the people that they were going to see.
Mm.
That when they graduated, they would be sitting in front of clients, they would be sitting in front of families, they would be possibly even sitting in front of uh, another classroom where they were teaching. What I knew was that my job was to hold in mind and care the most about the clients that my students would be seeing in the future. And that's what drove me to have really pretty high expectations and to learn how to do that well, hold those expectations well and kindly, and to still have them. Um, so that was the extent of what I was able, it sort of in the moment of what I put together around uh, those concentric circles. It's like I didn't think, oh, in this class I'm teaching, and these people are going to go reach another 3,000 people. It was just, I just wanted to make sure that whomever my students sat in front of in the therapy room, that they were getting the best that they could get.
So you'll love that we have a coincidence occurring
Really,
as we typically do.
uh,
So our listeners know that I started a computer animation visual effects software company years ago here in Santa Barbara, and stopped doing that 20 years ago and have been doing other things. But and now I get to get called on to speak and talk about the early days of computer graphics as a pioneer, all that kind of stuff. As the elder in the room, I get to do that
mhm.
as computer graphics is of an age now where the people who invented all the things that we're used to now are my age and older. And so there's a deep interest in the early days and how things came to be and all of that. To that end, on June 4th, it would have been the 40th birthday of Wavefront, the day we
Very
got
cool.
our incorporation papers. And I wrote my first article that ever went viral within that community, with tens of thousands of views of that, and people, employees or people who were customers or people who were students at schools where Wavefront
Hmm.
was taught, all got in and told their stories.
How cool is
It was
that?
just, oh my gosh, it was fantastic. And one of the guys, one of the early core guys, wrote and said, "I'm going to be in town on Fiesta Weekend, which is our big summer festival here in Santa Barbara, first week of August. So happens I moved to Santa Barbara on Fiesta Weekend 52 years ago,
Wow.
and didn't know what a fiesta was. Soon learned very quickly. Um, he said, "Why don't we have a barbecue and invite everybody?" And so I said, uh, "Yes, and I'm slammed, and I dub you the barbecue pit king right now." And he took the mantle and he's assembled a team, and I've underwritten it, right, so that
Hmm.
they can do what they need to do. We're going to have a big barbecue on August 2nd here in Santa Barbara
How beautiful is
for
that?
the wavefront, the OG wavefront, right? Because we were 40-ish, 50-ish, and grew to 600, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it got, it was global in a significant way. Um, and as I was listening to you, you provided enabling technology to a group of people who implemented that technology. We could say those
Hmm.
tools, those skills
Yeah, yeah.
that affected tens of thousands of people. And at one time, I counted the number of educational licenses we had out in the design schools, the art academies, the universities. We had 500,000 seats of our software. That was just in
Hmm.
education, just in education. And the goal being teach them how to use these tools. Then when they went to work, they would say, I need to have Wavefront to be able to do my job.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
that was a turned out to be a pretty good strategy. And
Great strategy.
and 2 years ago, um, 2 years ago, last year, the Academy Award for Avatar: The Way of Water for best visual effects went to the Academy Award for best visual effects went to Avatar: The Way of Water. A month before the Academy Awards, I got an email from one of my employees. I was his first boss 22 years ago. And I'm just tying all these things
Hmm. Hmm.
with the daughter. I was his first boss out of school, out of UCSB. He was one of our support engineers. He was the head of visual effects for Avatar.
No
And,
kidding.
and he was here in Santa Barbara to receive the Santa Barbara Film Festival's Vanguard Award and for the work he had done.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole team was here on the road to the red carpet at the Oscars. So there's all kinds of things that they did. There's the luncheons and the da 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 da. And to watch him walk up on stage at the Academy Awards and get an Oscar was beyond thrilling and exciting. And to think of the ripples we've made, you and I both,
Mm-hmm.
while we didn't think of it at the time because we were busy doing what we do, it's very gratifying now as an elder to look at the impact we made and
Totally.
by that to suggest to the people that are listening, is what you're doing now going to lead to impact in others?
Exactly. So when you're asking that question, talk a little bit about what your thoughts are about what impact is.
So I'm
Because
gonna I'm gonna go from big to small and small to big, but let's start with small to big.
perfect.
How we are around our children is the most personal impact we can have, I believe,
Hmm.
because they will impact all of those around them for their entire life. How they treat other people, the behavior we model, behavior you and I model in terms of being friends. But as a parent, the behavior you model, how you deal with your spouse, how you deal with the people who come in and work on the house, how you deal with the siblings, all of that stuff is observed by the kids, and you know this better. You've taught this, and so I think that modeling starts there. I now, because I've always wanted to be a grandfather, now very very intentionally know that I've learned that I make every moment matter with all three of my grandsons, because I know that that moment will be is in the running for the thing they remember 50 years from now.
Exactly.
And so I don't know if others are like that, but I absolutely have an awareness of that. And so I'm I pay attention to that, and I go out of my way to just be as present as I can with them. I mean, in everything I do, but very specifically with them on this
Hmm.
topic, because I know that the things that I think are important to me and are important to be successful in life, the most immediate people that I can have an impact on are my kin,
Right.
and so I do that. So that's the small part of that. So I think about that, and then that extends out, right? Our rings, our ripples into the other
Hmm.
people. But I
Hmm.
think the most important part, because you and I have talked about the intergenerational longevity of those lessons.
Absolutely. From your perspective, what's the difference between your intention with your grandchildren and, let's say, your intention in working in improv? What or I know that you and Kimberly do a huge amount of coaching
Yeah.
and teaching. Is there a difference? And part of the reason I'm asking is because in let me back up a little bit. One of the things is I try not to be different if I'm talking to you or if I'm talking to Kimberly or if I'm even talking to your Kimberly or if I'm talking to a student or working with a client or working with my horses. I try to hold the same set of values around presence and contact in the moment.
I agree with that a 10,000%, but I was not always that way.
Ah, so curious, when did you notice you weren't and what happened? Because I don't know that I can say I was always that way either. I would be BSing people if I said, "Oh yeah, I was born that way and I did that since birth." That's not true.
I think, and I'm probably, I don't know when. I think it's been in the last 20 years. And I think it's my relationship with Kimberly that was like kind of set, like I need to be the same person. All the different hats that we wear, I need to be the same guy who's wearing that rather than a
Hmm.
different guy. And I remember a very specific conversation with someone who was a poet laureate. His name's Noah Ben Shea, and he is spectacular. And he he's our age.
Hmm.
And he said, if your 5 to 9 is different than your 9 to 5, you're doing it wrong.
Uh-huh.
And
That's
that was
pretty cool.
about 20 years ago on a long walk we had on the beach.
Mm.
And I think that was in our 5S storytelling, that was the shift
Hmm.
where a
Hmm.
decision was made for continuity across lives. We were talking about work-life balance, and I said, and which is a different show, but he had said, if your 5 to 9 is different than your 9 to 5, you're doing it.
Right. What, and I'm asking you this because what my imagination is that is if someone, whoever is listening to this is going, so how do you do that? What shift did you have to make?
I think it was a little after the time I was introduced to martial arts and the notion of an ethos and tenets. And I mean, I'd been around that I mean, the idea of tenets and ethos had come up, but it hadn't been as front and center in my life as when you're going to the dojo 4 times a week.
Right.
And courtesy, integrity, perseverance, self-control, and indomitable spirit are put to test. And I think all of those things kind of happened at the same time. 21 years ago, I met Kimberly. We started the martial life. We started all of these different
Hmm.
revelations. So it was, when I was 50, I'll be 51 next week. Or excuse me, 71 next week. So I think it was at that time in my life where I really, the adulting kind of kicked in at 50.
Hmm.
And what my hope through this show is that people don't wait that long for adulting to kick in.
Well, that would certainly be nice, wouldn't it? I actually let me propose this, and then I want to sort of speak to something slightly different. My guess with you, Mark, and and part of this is based on my own experience because it was about 50-ish where it was like there was a major shift in my life too. Mm, my guess is that something happened around 50 where, well, first of all, that you were an adult before then,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so much of your life was about getting to work and supporting family and
Building
uh,
empires.
well, building something, whether it's
Yeah.
empires or not, and even building a home, building a life, and something happened somewhere around 50-ish, at least for me, where I was able to step back and take a sort of a bit of a more of a bird's eye view of the world and of my life.
That was exactly it.
And
I didn't like what I saw from the bird's eye view, tell you the truth.
well, exactly. And that's the piece I think here that is and can be and maybe should be really important because I work with uh, part of what happened last night at this gathering that I was at was I was standing in the middle of people who had mastery.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
and I don't know that many 30-year-olds that really have mastery. They're working toward mastery and they may think they have mastery. And I actually at 30, I thought I had mastery. And then it was like at 40, I thought I had mastery. And then at 50, I went, I really don't have that. What I thought I
So all
had
of
is
you under 50, this is what you have to look forward to.
right, exactly. And it's not a put down. It's just a part,
No,
I think it's a part of our growth as adults and and both for men and women, but I also think there's this push for men to have mastery sooner than they really have it. And if they don't get it, I've seen men be frustrated that, that it's not there yet. It's like, well, I'm 32 and I'm supposed to be able to do what you do, Dewey. And it's like,
there's
no,
that
you're
should word again.
right. No, it's you're 32 and should, quote, be able to do what I was doing at 32, which was trying to figure things out just like you. Um, but one of the big pieces that shifted for me was the realization that no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing, that what holds um, the consistency is my willingness to be vulnerable in every situation that I'm in. And I can see the wheels turning. So go.
I wish we had another 3 hours to talk about this. We don't. Um, it is very specifically our willingness to be vulnerable. I remember a very specific moment sitting in the bedroom, being confronted with my inability to confront things and being told, I'm not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere. We're going to deal with this. And as I said yesterday to another dear friend, the Cat Stevens songs that was the theme of my life at 50 was, I'm looking for a hard-headed woman, one that will make me do my best. Yeah, I love you, man.
I love you so much. I so look forward to these conversations, as well as all of our interaction in between these conversations. It's um, you bring a great deal of light to my life.
As do you.
Thank you,
Love you.
sir. Love you.